So I want to spend a few minutes thinking about our oneness and co-inclusion with God. 2 Peter 1 verse 2 says that God's desire is that we become fully acquainted with the awareness of our oneness. The way that He has always known us is realized in Jesus. Jeremiah 1:5 said, He knew us before we were formed in our mother's womb, and He had already made His mind up about us. 2 Peter 1 verse 3, His intimate knowledge of us introduces us to ourselves again and elevates us to a position where His original identity is clearly perceived. See, I was pondering to myself, why is it that I keep mucking up and falling short? And I came to the conclusion of three things that distract me and cause me to fall. Number one, I lose sight of the truth of who I am and who He is. I believe a lie about myself. I see myself as separate and fallen. Because I lose sight, I fall out of love, or I lose conviction or passion to the point where something else looks more attractive. I lose focus. I lack purpose and lose sight of a reason to stay the course. The common theme here is that I lose sight. It's like what James says, I step away from the mirror and immediately forget what manner of man I am. The number one thing here is I lose sight of the truth of who I am and who He is, and I believe a lie about myself. 2 Timothy 2:22, the best way to escape the snare of distractions of youthful lust, which are often typified by an all-consuming longing for forbidden pleasures, is to pursue and engage your life actively in everything that celebrates your redeemed oneness. So let's focus on the truth of who He is and who we are, and this idea of oneness with Him. In John 14:9, Jesus says to His disciples, if you've seen me, then you've seen the Father. In verse 20, in that day you will know that as I am in or included in my Father, so you are in or included in me, and I am in or included in you. This speaks to me of fusion, like when two liquids meet and fuse together as one. 1 John 5:11, the evidence is clear. Now picture a big courtroom where God brings to the court the most remarkable and undisputable evidence of our co-inclusion and oneness with Him. And He presents it in front of the court, and at that moment this evidence proves beyond a shadow of a doubt to everyone in that courtroom what God has been saying about us all along. And in presenting this solid evidence, God has given us back the life that we have lost. The life of the ages, which is the life of our design, the same life on exhibit and mirrored in His Son. Exhibit number one, presented in this case against mankind, reveals and uncovers our true identity. God giving back the life that we had lost, the life of our design. That is our identity. 1 John 5:12 says, to mirror echo the Son is to mirror echo life. Those who ignore this inner resonance concerning the Son miss out on the life of their design. God does not want us to be ignorant or miss out on this. Romans 3:22 says Jesus is what God believes about mankind. John 7:38, Jesus says, when you believe that I am what the Scriptures is all about, then you will discover that you are what I am all about, and rivers of living water will gush out of your innermost being. Our original design is what God knows to be true about us. Our true identity can only be known when we see that Jesus is in the Father and we are in Him and He is in us. Our view and understanding of the character of God will alter the way that we see ourselves and ultimately influence our identity. Philippians 2 verse 5, the way Jesus saw Himself is the only valid way to see yourself. Jesus is not an example for us to strive to live up to. Jesus is an example of us. Jesus is the only valid way to see ourselves. Jesus is the mirror in which we see the truth about who we really are. To mirror the Son is to mirror the life of my design, my identity. Jesus is the heart and identity of God on full display to His beloved mankind. In Jesus, God reveals Himself and ourselves as one, like fused liquids, the way it was meant to be. As if the very thought of mankind conceived us, resulting in this giant collision of God's thoughts and a physical reality, the spiritual colliding with the physical, exploding into what we know was the Big Bang, is stretching out into a vast universe and the most dramatic display of God's thoughts about us. Jesus is the collision of God and mankind, where deity meets humanity, where the spiritual meets the physical. Jesus reveals our oneness with God and His intent all along. Jesus is fully included in the Father, and we are fully included in Him and He in us. We're fused together. Our fusion and inclusion in Him is one of the most important things that we can come to grips with. It's because of this co-inclusion with Him that we can know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we were co-crucified, co-resurrected, and now co-seated with Him. Every bit of false and condemning evidence against you and against this truth of our oneness with Him has been thrown out of the courtroom, and you are free to go and live your rediscovered and redeemed identity. Bless you guys.